Since I started in January as Chief Economist of South Asia in the World Bank, this is my first visit to the region. I'm very happy that my first visit is to Sri Lanka. It's my first time at IPS. I'm incredibly impressed by the close cooperation that exists between IPS and the World Bank. That is something to be built on. I was also at the launch of the new study, Exports to Jobs, and again I was very impressed by the level of the discussion. The report shows evidence of the impact of exports on the quality of jobs. More exports means more and better jobs in Sri Lanka. And so that was discussed, but the discussion went much broader. It was about international migration. It was about the distinction between the formal sector and the informal sector. The formal sector where the wages are very much driven by the government, while there is lack of protection in the informal sector. It was about the question why there are not more entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka. And these are all issues that should be investigated more in the future, and I'm looking forward to do that with IPS. I think it is really South Asia's and Sri Lanka's turn now in the coming decades. It's very important that the country embraces new technologies, the digital technologies. They give new opportunities. It is important that the country embraces internationalization, globalization, because without that it is not possible to create sustained long-term development and long-term growth. And so that means a lot of changes in Sri Lanka. It also requires a rethinking of the labor market. Perhaps ultimately the goal is no longer that everybody becomes part of a formal sector in the form that exists now, but to make sure that there is much broader social protection for a much more variety of jobs. There are lots of important and interesting issues to research, but ultimately also it is important to contribute to the policy debate. So my first visit to IPS and to Sri Lanka is a great success. And this will by far not be the last one. I will try to come here very often.
So thank you to IPS and thank you for having us here. This has been a very fruitful conversation with IPS in terms of what to do in order to boost the gains from trade and improve workers' conditions. In South Asia, in particular Sri Lanka, the report Exports to Jobs focuses on what is the effect of trade shocks on local labor markets in Sri Lanka, and is an interesting study because it's one of the few which rigorously establish the relationship between trade and local markets and shows that some workers could benefit more from such a shock, but also provides policies or suggestions in terms of how more workers can reap the benefits from trade. So some of the policy recommendations go into the direction of increasing trade, which is currently very low in the region and in South Asia. The second is also diversifying exports and connected to global value chains and more regional integration. And the third area is ensuring the participation of disadvantaged groups into the labor market, women, the youth, providing the skills that are relevant for the labor market and be able to integrate into global value chains. Thank you.